Chakras and what have you, and we have a guy who's actually been holding for a while, but we got to get through the news. That's just the way it works here. So, but Jimmy has called early to make sure he's first, and he succeeded. So, hi, Jimmy, you're on the air. Hi, you're on the air.
Hey.
How you doing?
We're fine.
Great. Yeah, I called last week and ran out of time there.
Oh, yeah, that can happen. We never fully get to everybody, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, at least I got in now.
Good. Yeah. Thanks for waiting.
Yeah. One of the things I wanted to bring up is the chakra system that purportedly all humans have, according to the New Age gurus.
Yeah.
And basically, it has a lot to do with karma and where you're at, why you were born in a certain time and date, and what the circumstances you're in. If you're like poor, or you were born with a silver spoon in your mouth, or anywhere in between. And a lot of that has to do with your previous lives, dictating, what's going to be the circumstances in your present day life, and how you react to each situation that you run into. And a lot has to do with how at one-ment you are with God, like atonement, at one-ment, that type of thing. And the theory goes, according to New Age gurus, is that you have these chakra systems in your body. There's mainly there's 7 main energy centers in the body, starting at the base of the spine and going up to the top of your head. And the theory is that the lower you are on the spine, the harder, more difficult circumstances that you will encounter. And
wait, now the lower. What do you mean by the lower you are? What do you mean by the lower you are on the spine? The more difficult your situation.
The lower you are in the spine, meaning that you have you act more like an animal. You're more selfish.
Okay.
You're more tend to be stealing and robbing people and lying all the time.
I think the question Martin was trying to ask, though, is where are you on your spine? I mean, my head's at the top, my butt's at the bottom.
Yeah, apparently there are chakras. There are chakra points all up and down the spine.
But they're at set points at the spine.
Is that what the belief is? They're at set points on the spine?
Right.
So then, I'm not quite sure what you mean by when you say the lower you are.
What goes up and down?
Yeah. I'm not. Are you saying that some people supposed to not have chakras going all the way up?
There's something called Kundalini.
Okay.
I don't know if you ever heard the word Kundalini before.
I've heard it. I mean, I'm not that up on my Eastern stuff, but.
Okay. Well, yeah, it is definitely Eastern. It's discovered by the Hindus thousands of years ago. So supposedly, what happens is the more spiritual you are, the Kundalini energy that lies at the base of the spine, and it's like a snake that lies curled up at the dormant of your spine, and it's asleep. Most people's lives, especially people who are crooks, who end up in jail and are just plain old liars, their Kundalini never rises above their 3rd chakra, which is based at the solar plexus.
Okay.
And so there's like a spiritual knot in the solar plexus, and they only live in the bottom 3. Now there's above the solar plexus, there's 4 other chakras that are called the higher energy chakras, and they spin at a faster rate. They're all like, if you can picture them like a little tornado, and on the lower chakras, the bottom 3 spin really slow.
Yeah.
When you get above the solar plexus, they start spinning faster and faster until you get to the top.
But people, it amazes me that people just aren't walking around more dizzy and disoriented more with all this spinning going on in their bodies. I mean,
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
But mainly what it is, it's not like that. It's an energy. It's basically a tornado of energy.
Right. And well, you know what I mean. Energy is, right. I mean, energy is a physics term. It has to do with it has to do with an object doing work.
It's the space between the protons and neutrons and the electrons.
No, that's a physical space, not an energy form.
that's not quite right. See,
energy form typically takes on light is energy, heat is energy, gamma waves are energy, that type of thing. We have the spectrum mapped out, and we can see pretty much everything along that spectrum, and there's no major gaps where, you know, we can't detect, you know, from
Yeah, it's everything basically between infrared and ultraviolet.
Yeah.
Okay, but again, we can recognize that stuff. We can detect it.
Yeah, and it seems to me that
if you don't see this swirling thing around the arm.
I mean, if there's all of this high energy spinning going on up and down your spine, I mean, I can't imagine why one wouldn't be able to detect that on an MRI. I mean, we have incredibly sensitive equipment now, very highly developed medical technologies. You know, it just. Yeah, and another problem that, of course, you have the whole concept is, what if you get a person who's like paralyzed from the neck down or from the shoulders down?
Yeah.
Okay, so, well, here's obviously a person who, even if their chakras existed, these chakras aren't going to influence how that person behaves because, you know, here's a person who has no feeling in the spine. So, this person isn't going to end up leading a life of crime, or isn't going to end up, leading a particular, following a particular path and what have you. Because so it just makes no sense. I mean, I understand these beliefs are very old, but it just doesn't make sense. You know, that's.
I understand where you're coming from, and I don't have an answer to someone who's like paralyzed and had a spinal problem. I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know what happens to people like that.
Yeah.
But basically, that's the whole thing here. Is that the idea here is to break out of the cycle of reincarnation, and the higher you move up the spine, up to the top, the highest most chakra, is the gateway to Christ consciousness or Hindu consciousness or whatever you want to call it.
It seems awfully
complicated. That means you've broken the cycle of reincarnation, and you're not doomed to be born in another body and go through another lifetime again and suffer again.
Yeah. Which of course which of course the first question that I have to ask for the believers in past lives is, well, if we've all had past lives, still at some point there had to be the first one. Okay, so obviously not everyone could have had a past life, and even if you did have a past life, how do I mean, first off, how do these spirits that inhabit us from body to body work, and where do they go between bodies? I mean, do they just kind of float up to the ceiling and hang out there, or is there a place that they go? And, how does it all work? And how do these, I guess, souls or spirit entities or what have you that constitute our repeated lives, interact with our physical bodies and go from body to body? And then where do they inhabit us when they're inside us and all of this stuff? And it just doesn't make sense.
Well,
it's an overly...
Maybe I can answer it this way. You know how cell phones work? Pretty much cell phones.
Well, I mean,
depends on how technical you want to get about it, but
okay. Well, anyway, all right. So you're saying we pick up signals? Our bodies pick up signals?
Right. There you go.
Okay.
So our body is a big antenna.
If we use the analogy of a cell phone, of two cell phones calling each other. Like, say, for example, I've got my cell phone and I call your cell phone.
Right.
I type in my consciousness, my brain, which is intelligent, types into this piece of, machinery, your number, and I hit send. And for some reason, there's going to be, on the microprocessor, it's going to send out a wave.
Okay.
A wave of energy from my cell phone to your cell phone, and it's going to basically wake up your cell phone and give your cell phone life.
Okay.
And then we can communicate with each other. So we're both, now your cell phone was dead, now is alive because I just woke it up.
Oh, okay.
Does that make sense?
Well,
in a rough way?
In a rough way. I mean, I think it's extremely silly, but it makes sense.
It's an extrapolation of what we're actually seeing go on.
See, again, my question again is when I hear these beliefs and I hear these claims, I always go, where is the evidence? Well, I mean, if we are picking up these signals, if bodies are picking up signals from souls, and we're connecting like cell phones, I mean, where can we detect that signal? Where can I look and see that I've got 4 bars in my brain that I'm picking up a good soul signal to get the phone call from? I mean, there are, again, any number of ways, whether through CAT scans, MRIs, X-rays. If these strong signals are being sent out, why can't they be picked up and recorded and traced and seen in a very tangible way? Why can't we provide hard evidence of this stuff? Because it seems like with all of these bodies making cell phone calls to the spirit world to get spirits to have their new lives, that's a lot of, you know, signal. That's a lot of signals being broadcast through the ether, and you know, we ought to be able to detect that and pick that up and measure it and figure out how it works. In other words, we ought to be able to get evidence for it. I mean,
and again,
you know, I mean, I use this, no offense, but I just don't see, you know, I just don't see that this has any. It's an interesting story, but I don't see that it has anything to back it up.
And our bodies work in special ways. I mean, there are certain things that just so happen. There are important points on the body, just for physical reasons, stuff like that. Our heart ended up here. Our center of gravity is in your abdomen. This is a pretty sensitive part of the body here. You know, you want to kind of protect that. It's surprising that that's where all these energy fields, you know, tend to be. Your groin, they got one in your solar plexus, right over your heart, kind of important spot. Your throat, very dangerous spot, between your eyes and on top of your head. These are all very important parts of your body. Now, are they important because they got some kind of energy, mystical energy field going on there? Or just because they're important parts and so therefore we attribute things to them that aren't really there? Yeah. I would assume it's the latter. Yeah. That there's nothing really special.
I would assume it would be the former. I would say the reason why our bodies are here is specifically to house these energies in order for us to learn what the soul needs to learn in order to move on to the next lesson.
Okay. Do all animals have these?
Learn all the lessons there is to learn in the physical dimension, then they break out of the cycle of reincarnation and don't have to deal with all the miseries and all the decisions and all the things that a human has to go through. I mean, it's basically called the wheel of samsara, or basically the wheel of reincarnation.
Okay, where does this...
Do animals have these same things?
Yeah.
First off,
animals have them too.
Okay. What about animals that have completely different body structures from ours? Do they have a separate, you know, system of reincarnation where their chakras are in different places, so their bodies morph to fit these different shapes?
Yeah. What about invertebrates?
Most mammals do have spines as well.
Yeah. But what about invertebrates?
Yeah. Octopuses have really weird bodies.
I have no idea about. I know about mammals. That have skeletons, but I don't know about jellyfish and all that stuff.
Okay, so anyway, okay. Well, all I can really say, Jimmy, is that, you know, biology accounts for life. You know, I mean, there's still a lot to learn about our bodies and our brains and what have you, but we know enough about the human body to understand, and other creatures' bodies, to understand just how the machine itself functions. Yeah. And I just don't really see where there is any need to try to come up with this reincarnation process and these spirits that somehow inhabit us.
Well, I got more proof for you. How's this?
Well, you haven't given us
100 years ago, Einstein said that the atom is 99.9% empty space and only 0.1% physical.
Well, what's that got to do with reincarnation?
Well, plenty, because when you look at your partner over there and your partner looks at you, he's mainly looking at empty space. He's only seeing 0.1% of you, and you're seeing only 0.1% of everybody else, because every atom, according to Einstein, is 99.9% empty space.
Yeah,
but what does that have to do with chakras and reincarnation?
I mean, how does that prove reincarnation? How does that prove souls? How does that prove chakras? I mean, he's talking about empty space, but that's at the subatomic level. Yeah. Doesn't really exactly affect us here. You know, I mean, that's not empty. Well, this might be. Well,
that empty space is a magnetic field that holds the protons and neutrons in orbit with the electrons, so the electrons won't fly off somewhere else.
Yeah, but again, we haven't made
you got to have that magnetic force.
Which is detectable.
Attracts the electrons to the protons.
Yeah, and as Ashley pointed out, we can detect atoms. We can detect things happening at the subatomic level. How can we detect these chakras? How can we detect these divine cell phone signals from spirits looking for a body to inhabit? There must be ways to do it.
I don't know if maybe there was an undertaking. I don't know if they have done an undertaking yet to prove it or not yet. Have you? I don't know. I haven't heard.
I think that the long and short of it is that no, I don't think they have, simply because, you know,
there's no reason to.
Yeah, I mean, there's just not really enough sound evidence to take chakras and the whole concept seriously from a medical or
scientific perspective. And that leads me to the next question. What if the powers that be who control the media and everything do, for example, want to go ahead and prove the chakra system to see if this does relate to past lives and whatnot, and suppose they do prove it, would they want to necessarily tell everybody about it, or would they want to go ahead and distract us with
Why not?
They could be the richest medical people in the world if they can prove that you can hook a 9-volt battery up to your heart chakra and that'll cure AIDS or whatever.
Yeah.
They would be the richest people in the world.
If you could actually prove that there were such things as souls and past lives, and that would be a thing. If you were the person to prove that to the world incontrovertibly, you would stand to gain quite a lot from it. So I can't see why they wouldn't prove that. And so look, the first...
They may have their reasons for not wanting that to come out.
Yes,
maybe that they have no reason. Maybe that they have no evidence.
They may have but at this point, again, we are now at this point engaging in so much speculation. We're engaging in, about, now what are the motives of the media? What is this going on? You see, the fact is, when you get to this point where you're having to just sort of say, well, I don't know, maybe this, maybe that, and make stuff up, whatever the original problem was that you're trying to solve, you've just gone way off the track, and you are now engaging in it's not worth the effort. It's not worth the trouble. The point is, there's I'm sorry, nothing at this point in the biological sciences that supports the notion of chakras. And if chakras really do exist, and if souls do exist, and if past lives are things that people really have and experience, then there should be ways to find the evidence, publish some papers, have other scientists test them and look at them, and prove this stuff true once and for all. That's a process that every scientist has to go through to prove atoms and to prove black holes and what have you. So there's no reason why we should think of chakras any differently if people want them to take it seriously, scientifically speaking.
Well, if you go to India and speak to the gurus, they proved it to themselves.
Yeah, well, gurus aren't...
But they've never actually done any medical science study.
Yeah, gurus aren't scientists. I mean,
they sit on mountaintops and, look at trees.
Yeah, and so anyway, we appreciate your call, Jimmy, but we now got a lot of other people lined up, so you take care. Thanks a lot. Oh, well, I mean, yeah.
Again, it's one of those things where your mind can do a lot of weird things. Again, those out-of-body experiences and stuff like that, it's your mind doing weird things.
Yeah.
That doesn't make it any less neat or real to that person, but it's not proving or showing anything about the physical, real universe.
And I mean, like I said at the beginning of the show, neither of us are scientists professionally.
Exactly.
But I've been reading up on, and I can't discuss the field with any level of expertise, but I've been reading, books on, biology and not just evolutionary biology, but just how, and I've been,
works.
just how the cells work and how, and the stuff that you read when you study real science and the stuff that you actually find out about how organic living things function, just all the way from at the macro level, the full bodies down to the cellular level, to the interchanges that are made, and just how proteins work and all the rest of it. And it's just so much more impressive and interesting than these bizarre fantasies about chakras and souls and, reincarnated past lives.
Yeah. The reason that all mammals have the same configuration of bodies is that we all have a common ancestor, depending on how far back you go between, us and chimps versus us and dogs.
But ultimately what Jimmy was talking about is no different than what, for example, in principle, what Christianity is talking about. Yeah. All religions look for a way to convince their adherents that you don't have to die.
Yeah.
Okay. And
you can come back again.
Christianity does it through telling people, worship Jesus, and then your soul goes to heaven, and you get to party forever and ever. Eastern religions talk about, oh, well, your soul is, your body may die, but you've had a past life before, even though you can't really remember it very well, but our gurus and this special...
Trust me, it was there.
And this brightly colored pill will help you remember your past life. And you're going to have a life again, and you're just going through this testing process where you're climbing up the spine or whatever he was talking about until you reach the Godhead, and then you move on. And it's, again, it ultimately comes down to people looking for ways or reasons why they don't have to die.
Yeah.
And you know what? Science can cover that too. Next week on the show, Jeff D is going to come back and be a guest, and he is a big, we may not end up talking about this subject, but he's a big proponent of transhumanism.
Yeah.
And this is talking about life extension technologies.
Yes.
Okay.
Cryogenics and such.
Yeah. When you look at it from a strictly biological perspective, right, the human body is a big machine. We're machines made out of meat.
Yeah, it's pretty complicated, but...
And when you think of it that way, mortality is fundamentally an engineering problem. I mean, think of it that way.
Yeah.
It's all about just,
I haven't heard of it like that before,
keeping,
but yeah, true.
keeping the engine maintained. And there's already been plenty of research, for example, talking about like, the telomeres.
Yeah.
Which is
exactly,
the
yeah.
end of your DNA strand. And as you get older, the telomeres shorten.
Yeah.
And this apparently controls your longevity.
Yeah.
And the longer your telomere, the longer you'll live, and the shorter it gets. Then
So if we can inject telomeres, every 20 years, get a booster shot at telomeres.
Yeah, if there's a way, again, to go in and modify the genome to where you can slow that process down, you can give people longer, healthier, happier lives. There are actually technologies, and there's research into technologies to advance these ideas.
Yeah.
Don't worry about old Grandpa. I'm going to a better place. Shelbyville Hospital.
So anyway, but wow, just really, that call was a lot. I had an email exchange that I'll talk about when we have time later on with a woman who believed in past lives. Okay. And I had some opinions just on the whole concept of past lives that, and again, she just didn't get it when I was trying to explain it to her. But again, it's just this. What was at the core of it was this fear of death and this not wanting to.
Yeah, and I'll admit, hey, if I gotta die, that kind of sucks.
Yeah, so. But it comes to us all, and until of course we figure out how to really do something.
Work around this problem.
Yeah.
So.
But religions are the first in line to attempt to stand in the way of biotechnology and life extension technology.
Because if science does come out with a way to live forever, then you don't need God.
Yeah,
You don't
if
need
people
to be
don't
saved.
have death to fear, they don't need heaven to reassure them.
Yeah.
That's really.